I'm in the kitchen today getting ready to start a new preservation project. So this particular project will actually take several weeks for it to be complete. But the best part is I do just a little bit of work today and then I put it away for a couple weeks, attend to it every now and again, but I really don't have to do much for several weeks. I am making mulled blackberry vinegar. If you watched my pantry tour, you've seen that I have a couple different vinegars in my pantry and I absolutely love them. And if you're growing your own blackberries this time of year, you are awfully lucky because I know you probably have an abundance of them. I don't have my own blackberry plants just yet. Every couple of years I do add, and I have a blueberry and plants that are already giving me quite a bit of blueberries. I've had them for 2 years now, and this year I added a couple raspberry bushes. So maybe in a year or two I will do blackberries, but until then I just went up to my local farmer's market and they had beautiful blackberries on sale. And so I brought 2 of these home and I'm going to go and make from the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. On page 278, I'm going to follow the recipe for mulled blackberry vinegar. And I'm going to take you along with me. This is going to be so quick and easy, and it's going to be so flavorful. You're going to be so happy that you tried this. I've got dinner on the stove cooking behind me, and while that's going, I'm going to take a minute and just get this together real quick. It won't even take but a couple minutes of my time. So you need 4 cups of blackberries. Wash them really well. You don't have to worry about keeping them whole. You just don't want them really soft and bruised because we are going to mash them, but you want them as fresh as possible. So you need vinegar, you need your blackberries, you need cinnamon sticks, you need whole cloves, and whole allspice. When I make a recipe for the very first time, I always make it exactly how the recipe tells me to. Then I decide how I want to change up any of my flavor options or spices, whatever the case may be. I right away thought that cardamom and maybe a star anise or 2 would probably be really, really lovely in this as well. But I will wait and see how I enjoy it the way the recipe tells me to. When we're canning, we can alternate spices. That will not affect the safety of what we're canning. It will just affect the flavor. So if you really don't like cloves or allspice or even cinnamon, I suppose, go ahead and use what you do enjoy. I happen to like all 3, and so I'm going to try the recipe exactly how it tells me to. The first step, we are going to combine our blackberries with 1 cup of vinegar. Okay, then the next step is to just mash your blackberries. You can use a potato masher, you can use a wooden spoon, use whatever you have that can mash up blackberries. Let me get you down here so you can see what I'm looking at. Okay, so I would say those are pretty well mashed. We are then going to add the remaining of our ingredients, which is another 3 cups of vinegar. 2 cinnamon sticks. You can crush them up if you want to. If you have cinnamon chips, this would be a good way to use them. And then 1 tablespoon of whole cloves, and you know, I'm just gonna eyeball it. There's no need to be exact. And 1 tablespoon of allspice. Let's give that a good stir. This is going to be so flavorful. Okay, so now we're going to transfer this to a jar that we can put a lid over the top of it. I do believe, nope, actually you're going to cover it just with plastic wrap. So, do we think it'll all fit in here? I'm terrible at eyeballing sizes of things, so let's slowly transfer this. Gonna pop around probably. Okay. And so that it doesn't plop everywhere, I'm gonna grab a spoon and transfer the blackberries into my dish. Give it one last stir, and we're gonna get it covered with plastic wrap. So now we're going to set it aside, put it somewhere where it is not out of sight, out of mind. Every 2 to 3 days, you're gonna wanna stir it and check on it. For the most part, I can see as of right now, all of my fruit is settled here at the bottom, and it's just the vinegar on top. That in itself should eliminate any mold potential to grow on top. Vinegar is a very acidic environment, makes it very difficult for mold to grow. But you want to stir and you want to keep an eye on it just in case you've got any particles up near the top here, which I'm going to verify before I set it aside. I will make sure that there isn't anything floating towards the top, because that will start to grow mold if it's above the vinegar line. Anywhere from, I would say, 2 to 4 weeks, you're gonna wanna start testing it. You're gonna taste it to see, does it still taste an awful lot like you just put vinegar straight into your mouth? Over time, as the weeks go on, it should really start to become very fruity and sweet. I made my raspberry and my blueberry vinegars very much like this, and I got those recipes from this book as well. I imagine you can infuse this with pretty much any type of fruit that you'd like, and I do urge you to experiment and find out for yourself. So I'm gonna set this in my pantry on my cart where I walk past it numerous times a day, every day. And about every 2 to 3 days, I'll give it a stir. I'll sneak a peek at it, make sure it's not growing anything on top. If it is growing a little spot here or there, just take a spoon and scoop it out. It will not affect your entire product. In about 3 to 4 weeks, we will come back and we will get these canned up. We'll finish the process and we will have such a yummy vinegar in our pantry. I cannot wait. I'll see you in a couple weeks. Day 3. Today's Saturday and I started this on Thursday. So I gave it a little smell, and as expected, of course, it's still a very high vinegary smell. It looks beautiful. I was checking the top to make sure that there wasn't any scum starting to form or perhaps mold, which we had discussed already, but it looks great. And so I'm going to give it a stir. And I'll put the plastic back on. And we'll just continue to let it do its thing, and I'll come back. So let's see, so today's Saturday. I will definitely give it a stir on Monday and Wednesday. So I'll do like an every other. And then I'm gonna be out of town for a couple of days. So I may have to entrust my daughter to maybe give it a stir once, but I think it'll be okay by then. I could even bring it with me in the RV, but I'm not that worried about it. Okay, so we're gonna give it a good stir just to make sure everything's staying incorporated. Get that plastic back on. Like I said, 3 to 4 weeks we're looking at being able to have a finished product. So that is day 3. Well, it's been 2 weeks since we did our mulled blackberry vinegar. And I'm hoping it comes through as well as it does here in person. The color has changed. I mean, we have a very deep, beautiful purple. And when I walk into my pantry, I can actually smell like a sweetness that I'm sure is this, is the blackberry vinegar. But I want you to see how pretty that looks. It's beautiful. I'm going to be doing a side-by-side comparison. And so if it doesn't come through, quite as nicely this way over through the camera, that maybe the side-by-side you could see exactly how beautiful this color is starting to really deepen. It just looks so nice. So I'm going to give it a stir, and I don't have a spatula behind me, so I'll use one of my, I have these spoons for when I have like parties. I can just use a quick serving spoon. So I'm going to give it another stir. Now I will say, I have not touched it here in a couple days. I've been out of town, and there's nothing on top that I need to be concerned about. I didn't really think there would be because of the vinegar. I mean, it's basically, quite frankly, it is all vinegar with a couple of our cinnamon sticks and spices and the blueberries, of course, but it's such an acidic environment that there's really nothing that's going to grow. So I don't foresee that you'll have an issue if you try this at home yourself. There's nothing even attempting to grow along the edge or anything. So just giving this a quick stir. What I can see is the cinnamon stick, the allspices have have swelled. They've plumped up a little bit because they've been sitting in here now for 2 weeks. My blueberries have definitely plumped up quite a bit as well. So I'm just going to put the plastic back on, and every couple of days I will come in here and I'll check on it and I'll stir it, but basically I'm pretty confident at this point that I'm going to let this wait the entire 4 weeks before we are ready to can it up. Well, it's been 4 weeks plus a day since we started the Blackberry Mulled Vinegar, and we're gonna get it canned up today. It looks beautiful. It is such a deep, rich color. It is so pretty. I haven't tasted it yet, but I'm about to. I'm not gonna lie, I am a little nervous. It smells really good. You know, it tastes fruity. It's a little sweet from the natural sugars in the blackberry, very much vinegar, and we know how I feel about vinegar, but it's very good. If you sweetened it up with a little bit of honey, and then you add in to offset the strength of that vinegar, maybe a little bit of water. I mean, you can make a wonderful dressing out of it, and then to add it to the glaze on top of a ham, I think would be phenomenal. A pork loin, chicken, there's so many different things you could do with it. Absolutely delicious. I cannot wait to get it on my shelf, and it's going to make wonderful gifts as well. So I'm using today the little teeny tiny 4-ounce jars, and we're going to use Harvest Guard lids. It's a 2-lid system, and down here I have the rings as well, so I will show you how we do that. These do go on a little different. I had bought a ton of Superb lids, and I just don't want to use those on something like this. You know, I kind of want to use it on things that I need to guarantee a seal on, and I feel like I need to ration my lids a little bit here in this harvest season. So that's what these are for. They're reusable, and I'm going to use them. I have great luck with them in the past, so there should be no reason I can't use them for this. But I am going to save the other lids for something else. I'm going to use just a couple regular lids because I do plan to gift them away, but otherwise they're going to sit on my shelf for our purpose. And then the ones that I give my mom, she always gives me the jars and everything back, and other people I can gift to who I know I'll receive the items back from, but I'll do probably 2 or 3 with regular lids so I can gift them and not have to worry about receiving anything back. First step is to get this on the stove top. We're going to bring it to a boil. Well, I guess no, scratch that. First step is to strain this. Then we're going to get it onto the stove top to boil. It's got a lot going on in the kitchen. You could probably even hear the canner going off in the background. I've got 2 pressure canners going, so it's going to be a little loud. So I'm going to bring you in and I'll show you what we're doing, and I'll do a voiceover so that way I know you can hear me. Inside of the cheesecloth is what we just strained, and then I'm sort of doing like a double strainer here just to be able to control, I guess, the flow of the vinegar a little bit better. Notice I am not really pushing down on the cheesecloth. I am sort of picking it up, letting it fall back down, and just the sheer pressure of doing that releases additional vinegar. You don't want to push down super hard because much like when you're trying to make jelly, if you do that, you could end up with a very cloudy product. So just sort of manipulate it around a little bit, getting into some different spots of that cheesecloth that might not be having any sort of interference with the blackberries and everything. And just do that a couple times to get as much of that vinegar out as possible. Using a candy thermometer, I am putting my vinegar up to a boil. Once it reaches 180 degrees, I can shut the burner off and begin ladling into my jars and getting them ready for canning. I don't quite honestly know why we need to get it up to 180 degrees. My best guess, educated assumption would be that's the temperature in which we know certain bacteria might be killed off. You want to get, it's a fruit, natural sugars, you want to get everything up to a certain temperature to make it safe to go into your jars, which will then sit on our shelf. So I'm sure it has something to do with safety reasons. Plus, this is a hot pack method, and perhaps maybe that's just what they figured out, that temperature was the best. I honestly not entirely sure where the 180 came from, but you definitely want to try and get control of that as best as possible. It did not take very long. Working with a few jars at a time, I am just going to start ladling into my jars. And of course, you're going to want to wipe the rims of your jars and double check your headspace. This can be jarred up at 1/4 of an inch of headspace. Now, I will say use precaution because this blackberry vinegar is an absolute beautiful color, but it will most definitely stain. So if you work with beautiful light colored linens and kitchen towels within your kitchen, that is not a day to have those anywhere near because it will absolutely stain anything that it may come into contact with. So just keep that in the back of your head when you do this. Because it is absolutely so beautiful, I thought to myself, I could not let this opportunity pass without using my favorite jars ever. These Weck jars are so beautiful. It could be a little interesting to try and work out how to use the two-part lid system. Well, I guess it's three considering the clips as well. But it isn't all that difficult. I mean, you just have to do it a couple times, get a hang for it, and it'll be fine. But I knew I had to put these on my shelf in these absolute beautiful jars. And those jars I knew would be the ones that stay in my pantry. So wiping the rim really, really well, I am going to use my Harvest Guard lid. This is another three-part system. I have the seal that comes separately from the actual lid. I just put them together. I fix it over at the top of the rim so that way it's all level and even. And then you're going to twist your lid on. This one's giving me a little bit of a problem. And then once you twist it on, you're going to back off just a little bit. And then into the canner it goes. And then once they come out of the canner, when it's done processing, you crank down and tighten those jars using, of course, a towel or something to protect your hands from the hot jar. Now to get them out of the canner, they look absolutely beautiful. And of course, this is a very busy time of year, so you will see in the background, I've got empty jars for a project waiting, and then I have full jars for a project I am in the midst of. A very, very busy time of the year, of course, but I can tell you that these came out beautiful. All of my seals did in fact seal, which is always great news, especially when I'm working with jars that have that 2 to 3 part system. It's always a sense of relief when I can get those seals to work properly. So I have a couple jars for my pantry. I have a jar or two for my mom's pantry, and then I have a jar for somebody who might decide they would like to try it. I can't tell you how many times my pantry comes up in conversation between me and somebody and my husband and somebody. Mostly my husband. He's my cheerleader. He's my biggest supporter. He tells everybody about the home preservation that I do. Somehow it gets brought up and he's showing pictures, sharing my YouTube channel name, and I'm just so grateful for that. So we generally then, if he goes and sees them again, he'll say, hey, give this a try. So I like to have goodies that we can share with everybody else. I hope you give this a try. It's one of those things that can sit on your shelf that don't need attention right away. It's something that isn't necessarily a, absolute necessity for your pantry, but it is nice sometimes to have those really fun items to try something new. As you can see, I'm using this towel to crank down on those lids. That helps to ensure that they will seal properly. So this is just something that's fun to have on my shelf. It's something that I can really use it in a lot of different ways. It's unique. It's something that you probably won't find in a store. And if you do find it in a store, it's probably loaded with sugars and all these other things that just aren't necessary, quite honestly. And so this way, I sort of have like this blank slate where I can add to it. I can make it to what I want at the time when I'm using it. So I hope you give this a try. Thank you so much for stopping by. This was a really fun project, and I hope you try and let me know how it goes. You can use other fruit besides blackberry as well. See you next time.